Hey everyone, welcome to the 20th episode of Coffee with Cosmos DB series. If you have missed to join the last episode, you can watch the recording in the playlist under Coffee with Cosmos DB series um, whatever the episodes that you have missed so far. Before I start today's episode, if you would like to know about a particular topic or a feature, please ask in the chat so that we can take it up and discuss in the next episodes. If you're joining this live session for the first time, this series is all about spreading the knowledge on Cosmos DB by the experts to the community. So make sure to subscribe the channel and share with the community members who are looking to learn more about Azure Cosmos DB. And if you're also interested to present or have any feedback, please reach out to me. And thanks for all feedback so far. With that, let me introduce our guest for today. Today we have Sandeep for the third time, the most famous guest in this series so far. Let me add him to the stage. Hey Sandeep.
Hey Saji, thank you for such a nice introduction.
Yeah, yeah. I think for the audience who have recently joined or who are watching it for the first time, you can go with your intro.
Yeah, so I'm a PM in the Cosmos DB team, and I basically take care of a few things like I take care of customer onboarding, of big customers onboarding, and recently I am looking at the Mongo migration piece, and that's what today's topic is also about. So we are developing some tooling that will help you migrate from MongoDB native to Cosmos DB MongoDB seamlessly, uh, very efficiently.
Yeah, cool. I think this tool recently was announced at Ignite, right? If I understand right.
Indeed,
And
that's
this
right.
topic is very interesting to customers, especially for the customers who are already using, already aware of Mongo, and if they want to migrate to Cosmos DB. So yeah, let's talk more about it, Sandeep. Yeah.
Sure. So I think migration is an important topic. Um, I give an analogy, a very simple, just put simply, you can build a five-star hotel, but if you don't build a road, you cannot get your customers, right? So the road is as important as the hotel. So migration is the road through which you can bring your data in and then you can build. That's hardly how your system will be used, because expecting customers to build everything fresh from scratch on your database is not going to work, because they already have something that they may have been working on, maybe in a dev environment, maybe in production, but moving that to the and to your new environment is important, and that's where migration comes in as a very handy tool, right? Also, migration is not copy paste. The reason why it is not copy paste in many times is because there are discrepancies between the source and the target. For example, if you, let's say we take a MongoDB native versus MongoDB in Cosmos DB, it's not as if Cosmos DB is running some Mongo VMs and deploying it as a PaaS solution. Our backend is different. Our backend has got its own advantages and maybe some incompatibilities with the MongoDB native, right? So identifying what those gaps are, being aware of it, and then taking a meaningful decision on how you can migrate is important. So when you talk about migration, two things come into mind. Is one is the assessment piece, or which is the figuring out the gaps and identifying your strategy. That's one piece. And second is the data movement piece, which is copying the data from the source to the target the appropriate way while maintaining the constraints and all the rules of the target system, right? So yeah, that's where migration comes in, and our tool exactly helps you there. So we actually, this tool or this assessment, sorry, this migration extension that we are going to talk about, it was released in April for the first time. But when we released it in April, it was just an assessment tool. It just went to your source database and did an assessment and gave you a report, and you could look at it and decide how you could migrate. However, it didn't have a migration piece. So what we released for Ignite is the migration piece, and what we have released right now is only phase one, which is the vCore MongoDB vCore offline migration. We will add MongoDB vCore online migration, and MongoDB RU migration in subsequent releases. So when you talk about, again, just to clarify for people who do not understand the difference between offline and online migration, when I say offline migration, we say it's like a snapshot. You take a snapshot of the database from the source and then move it to the target. So any new data that is getting updated, deleted, or created on the source will not reflect on the target. So it's like a no, you take a snapshot and move it. But there are many scenarios, specifically in production environment, where you want to move it in online method, which basically means that I will move the data. Also, I will track what is changing on the source, and I have method by which I can use that change to replicate on the target. So it's like a continuous process. And once I have a stage where my source and target are in sync, and I'm ready to cut over, I stop my on original source, port my application to read the target, and then after that, that becomes my production environment, and I can let go of my source. So that's how this thing works. So right now we are only have the vCore offline migration available, but vCore online migration is next in line, and that's something that we may release in a few months.
Got it. Okay. I have a couple of questions, right? I think when it comes to migration, there could be failures, or there could be scenarios that the source and destination schema doesn't match, and also there could be the service issues that happens from the backend side. So, is there a way to collect the logging messages, or like what's going through behind the scenes? So, do we have that capability with the tool that we announced?
So you talked about two things. One is schema incompatibility, and one is outages, or temporary or long-term outages, which can cause issues. So when you come about incompatibilities, assessment is the right way to go about it, because when you run the assessment, the tool will very clearly say that this is not supported on the target. So it when you migrate, uh, you may migrate with some loss of feature or loss of data, depending on the incompatibility, etc. Right? And in some cases, it's completely blocking. You cannot just do it. So you cannot just migrate it also. So then, for that, I would recommend, when you do so, the way our migration tool works is, when you start migrating, it first does an assessment, shows you a report, you review the report, you can decide to not continue. Also, you can download the report, you can spend time with the report, ponder about each issue, figure out what's the workaround. You can, and if you think everything is okay, you can come back and restart the process. But anyway, look at the assessment report in detail, see if there are any incompatibilities, and if you find that everything is good, then only proceed with migration.
Okay.
Otherwise, the migration effort is waste, because you may be migrating to something which is not usable. Now, coming to the second piece, which is about errors or issues that happen, uh, there is telemetry that is captured from the tool. We are able to, as a platform, we are able to detect what errors happened. So we would monitor it. We would take care of looking at what went wrong and fix it. As a customer, also there is a log for there's a log that gets created. So if you want to raise a support ticket, you can of course upload the log and uh, provide us it. But so there is this migration service that we have built is not, the good feature about this is it's not running on your computer, it's running on cloud. So you are using your front-end machine, your laptop or your desktop, to just provide the basic input and do the assessment. Once the assessment is complete and you have said, okay, these are the collections that I want to migrate, or these are the databases that I want to migrate, you hand that job back to the cloud, which is the data migration service that is running on Azure, and all the heavy lifting is being done on DMS. So your local network outages, your speed, your bandwidth are not an issue here, because those we are running on inside a data center, right? So we have all the the redundant services to make sure that the services run just smoothly. And of course, we have, if something goes wrong, we have logs, just like any other service, which we monitor and figure out what went wrong and take corrective actions.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for answering that. I also have a few other questions. Like when it comes to a database, right? It might contain multiple collections, so multiple databases. So when it comes to that capability, right? Do they, I mean, when users select multiple database or collections to migrate, are they getting migrated in parallel or have this, the scenarios to be handled separately?
Yeah. So whether you say well, like whether you select databases or so okay, today the unit of selection is databases. You say which databases you want to migrate, and after that it shows you all the collections that are there in the database, and if you want you can skip specific collections from that. So but essentially if you come to the final, it's a list of collections that you're migrating, right? So the way, and I mentioned that the migration is done on the DMS. uh, the DMS has a limit of 50 collections in one migration. So if you put 50 collections to migrate, they will be added to the DMS queue, and then in the queue they will be processed two at a time. So if you so think of it like two trains inside the DMS, each train carrying it and migrating it. So at any point in time, two migrations will be running. Once if any one of them finishes, then it will pick the next item from the queue and add it to the same flag. So you will be migrating in sets of two, right?
Okay.
But let's say you add 100 collections. What happens then? Uh, what happens then is when you add 100 collections, we internally will create two DMS. So you will actually have four tracks. So two tracks from DMS1 and two tracks from DMS2. So it is parallel, but it's also sequential. Sorry, it's also sequential and parallel if you depending on the way you want to look at it. Two parallel and then rest of it in sequence. But
Got it.
while I say that, while I say that, I just want to also add uh, for better monitoring, for better resource management, it is not a good idea to put everything to migration together. You should batch it in logical ways. Specifically, if you have got large collections, do not club it up with small collections. If you have a few small collections, you club it together and put it for migration, makes sense. But then if you put a large collection also on migration, it's going to become so thing is when you're migrating, you're also putting load on your source server, right? Because the migration has to read from the source. So if all these migrations are running parallelly, it's all adding up on the pressure on the source. So your chances of timeouts of your source server, not having enough resources all increase. So plan it in a way that if you're running big collections, let them run individually. If you have small collections, then batch it up into logical units and do it so that it all you have also clear, measure of what has got migrated and what has not got migrated. Even if something has to be cancelled, if then something has to be redone, you have a good idea of what has been done. Otherwise, if you take everything and put it to migration and then you have to cancel, you have no idea how much got migrated, how much didn't get migrated, and you will be redoing and spending a lot of effort there. So batching is a good idea too for efficiency purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Before I move to my further questions, there are a couple of questions on the chat from the audience. Let me take that. First is regarding the timeline for the online migration support for MongoDB Core. Do you have any timeline?
Um, I do not have a definite timeline. A few months. We have started working on it. Our team is actively working on it. I'm hoping 3 4 months. But yeah, there are some challenges. It's a I can't give you a very definitive date on that.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Other question we have from Srinath ji. So this is mainly on the DMT tool. Basically, for the NoSQL API, we do have this data migration tool, right, which has a nice user interface. I mean, graphical user interface, which shows the data and so on. Are we have any plans? I mean, are we having any plans to have the similar kind of user interface to
Yeah.
migrate the data? Yeah,
So in fact, I'm just going to show you a demo of the tool, and you will see the GUI interface today itself. So Srinath ji, you don't have to wait. It's available today.
all right. Okay. Yeah. Further questions I have is basically the estimation, right? When it comes to migration, one of the point, like you already spoke about, the backend issues and also the reliability aspects. But do we have a way to, see the estimation when we are migrating large collections from the source to the destination, and how does it handle? Uh,
Yeah, so there's no, I know there's no one size that fits all to give you a very precise number and say it is going to take this much time. The reason I say that is the time for migration is dependent on a lot of parameters. Parameters like what is your document size, how many documents are you carrying, what is how much threshold or how much what is your size on the source server, how much bandwidth do you have, how much resources do you have to provide it, how far are you migrating it in terms of distance? If you're migrating from a far off cluster to from so distance network distance that you need to travel, although again distance of course to your destinations also matter. So your all these things parameters put together, it's very difficult to come up with a clear number on how much time it's going to take. My recommendation there is try it on a small collection. Take a small collection which has got small size, run the migration and measure it. And you can then extrapolate that number and see how much time it's going to take to migrate your big collection.
okay, got it. I think we can move to the demo part, and we'll take up the other questions once we have the demo.
Sure. So I think I'll just, I have a
demo of the
paucity. Uh, this is a pre-recorded demo. The idea here is that when you talk about, like I said, assessment, migration, etc., these are long-running processes. So they take up some time to run the assessment, etc. And I didn't want everybody to just wait while the system is just processing. So I just took the relevant screens from the demo that I ran, and I converted it into a video with some voiceover. So I'll just play the video now, and post the video, we can have further discussions.
Hello everyone. This is a demo of the Azure Cosmos DB for MongoDB migration extension in ADS. So today we have got two options for migrating a workload from MongoDB to MongoDB vCore on Cosmos DB. First one is the native tools, which uses which is basically Mongo export and Mongo dump to export it and then import it into the Cosmos DB using Mongo import and Mongo restore. These tools are supported. However, these tools work best when the data size are small, typically less than 10 GB. For larger workloads, we need to have a tool to do it, and the ADS extension provides you easy way for migrating it without the customer requiring to configure any workload or having any additional cost. So to get started, we install the extension in ADS by going to the marketplace and selecting the you can search it by using the Cosmos keyword and select the Azure Cosmos DB migration for MongoDB extension. Once you install this, it will install all the prerequisites and you should be ready to start using it. To start using it, the first step we do is to create a new connection, and you do start that from the left blade or the connections blade. You provide the connection details. You can provide the parameter-based connections or a connection string here. The connection type should be Mongo account. And once you click on connect, the connection should get added in the connections list. You right click on the connection and select manage to open the extensions that are available. And here you could see the Azure Cosmos DB migration extension also. We select the extension and you will be presented with the dashboard where you see the assess and migrate databases button. So we start the wizard here, and the first step is the assessment. So the assessment basically is a step where we collect data from the source and compare it with some new rules based on the selected target and give you a report saying that which features will work, which features will not work, and also give you workarounds if there are possible. So to start with, we provide the assessment name. We select our offering that we want to assess against, and if required, optionally we can provide the log folder of your Mongo server also. This is an optional step, but if you can, we recommend you provide that. In some cases, customers are not able to provide it, so it's okay to skip it also. Once you provide all the detail, you click on the run validation button, and at this point, the system will validate and make sure that the current user has got the necessary privileges to run the assessment. And if everything is good, the run assessment would change to start assessment, and you can get started with the assessment. You click on the start assessment button and the assessment is invoked. It takes a few minutes for the assessment to complete. You would see this screen while the assessment is running, and once the assessment is complete, it will paint the assessment report here. This assessment report has got all the compatibilities that we found, um, and it can be viewed in two ways. You could look at it at an instance level by clicking on the instance name here, or if you want to look at a specific database, you could select the database and it will show you the incompatibility specific to that database. Uh, for if you want to discuss this assessment later, you could download the report and it will generate an HTML report for you, which can be viewed offline. We want the customers to review the assessment report in detail, make sure that they understand what are the incompatibilities found, what are the workarounds that we have suggested before proceeding with migration. This is to make sure that we don't migrate something which doesn't work and customer finding surprises. So in case the customer decides to migrate, they could select the databases from the assessment report and click on the next button. At this point, we would only be able to migrate vCore based accounts. RU based accounts are not supported yet. We are working on that. Once you select the next, you need to select your target vCore account. You provide the details. You also need to provide the connection string to the account. And at this point, the system will validate whether we can connect to the account or not. And once the connection is OK, you can proceed with the next step. At this step, the system will map the existing collections on the target with the collections that you selected for migration and see which of them already exist and which do not. If a collection already exists in the target, the default option for migration is selected as skip. But as a customer, you may decide to remigrate it, but remigration will lead to overwriting the existing collection. So please select this option very carefully. Once the mapping is complete, you move to the next screen where you select the DMS. The DMS is an Azure resource which does all the data movement. You do not need to have a separate DMS for each migration. If you already have a DMS in your resource group, go ahead and use that. If you do not have one, create one, and you can create one very easily by clicking on the create new button and just providing the name for your DMS. Once the DMS is created or selected, you can proceed to the next screen, which is about the summary, where you review all the information that you provided and make sure that there is nothing that is amiss. Finally, you click on the schema button, and this will create the schema, which basically means creating all the collections on the target. And once the target collections are ready, you click on the start migration, and at this point, the control is passed over to the DMS and all the data movement starts on the cloud resources. You do not need to be connected for the data migration to be working because it's all running from the Azure cloud. But in case you want to look at the status, you can come back and see the status on the dashboard, and you can get into collection level detail and see which collections are migrated and what percentage. If you want to look at the migration that was triggered some time back, you can come to the migrations tab here and look at all the migrations that were triggered, and you could look at the status by clicking on the migration name. Similarly, if you have done some assessments in the past and you want to look at the reports, you could also download the report by looking at the assessment list here. So that was a quick demo of the ADS-based Mongo migration that we have.
Yeah, so that was the.
Yeah, go
Happy
ahead.
to take questions.
Yeah, this looks super cool. I think this removes a lot of pain points that customer had when migrating from Mongo to Cosmos DB. Yeah, I have one question from the audience. Let me take this. How this is different from using ADF? Is this a managed version?
Yeah, so the important question here is how is it different from ADF? For ADF to run one, you need to know how to use ADF, and you need to create the source, create the sync, run the migration, and also pay for it. Here, we kind of simplified it. We are just asking you to select the source, select the target, decide which what you want to migrate, and leave the rest to the platform to manage. So it's a platform managed service. It is free for now. Um, we don't have a clear plan when we will start charging for this. At least for now, it is free. And yeah, so it's a kind of a much simpler way to do migration. Uh, and like I said, it's a zero cost as of now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think I also have a couple of questions as well. This is more towards the configuration, right? You already spoke about the best practices, but we have seen a lot of scenarios like when the connectivity goes down, right? Customers face a lot of network issues and also connectivity issues. So, do we have any best guidance to avoid connectivity issues while doing the migration?
So I think from a connectivity and also from a latency perspective, any data movement on the network is costly and also prone to errors, right? So the simplest recommendation is, if possible, migrate in the same region. Uh, when we, when you configure the, or when you run a migration using ADS based tool, we go and create the DMS closest to the target so that we are able to write to the target in the easiest or the shortest possible way, right? But we cannot decide the source. So if you're creating your vCore account, try to put it in the same region where your source is, so that the data movement on the network is on the minimum. Again, in some cases it's not possible because you want to change the region, which is okay. But generally speaking, pick a region which is closest so that you don't have any issues on the network. Two, from a platform side, we ourselves add some exponential backups so that if at all there's a connectivity loss, we are able to handle it. We don't just any uh, you know, small flickering in the network is not going to uh, block the migration. We hope to we expect the platform to be able to handle it and do it some kind of delays, exponential backup, so that we try after some time and hopefully by then the connection is restored. So I think those are the two things. But again, I think most important is looking at the assessment and making sure that you are compatible.
Got
Because
it.
many a time it's the incompatibility which is a problem rather than the connectivity or the network.
Got it. Okay. There is one more question from the audience as well, again from Srinath ji. Is there any limitations on the size of the data for source and target?
No, there is no limitation on size and target. Um, but since we are an offline migration, if your collection is going to be very large, the migration time is going to be large. So that basically means that you will have to keep your source system or the application will have a long downtime if it's a production system. So at this point, find a sweet spot where you can as you afford to have a downtime for which for an offline migration. When it comes to online migration, this challenge will go away because while we are doing the migration, we are also tracking your updates. So even if it takes 2 days to do the migration, we will catch up on the updates that happened in the last 2 days later on. So then the timing will not be an impact. But at least today, when we are just talking offline, uh, it may be impractical because once your migration completes, what do I do with stale data? So that may be a point to ponder about. Yeah, but apart from that, there is no size restriction. Second
Got
thing,
it.
if you find that you have a very large collection and it is taking much more time than you think it should, we also raise a ticket with us and we'll see how we can speed it up.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I have one more question. I think since you're already on time, this question comes up from different customers on the feature itself, right? Whether they can rename the collection on Cosmos DB. When it comes to this migration tool, is there a way to rename, like while doing the migration? Is it possible?
Not now. We hope to have it in a future version, but at this
Okay,
point, we wanted to have the vanilla version out first. So yeah, at this point, there is no renaming supported.
got it. Okay,
Later on, hopefully, we will be able to rename and also maybe move collections from databases. So move collection. Let's say there's a database A collection one, and when you migrate, you want collection one to move to database two. uh, that should be possible. Reorganizing the collections in some order and renaming it. That should be something possible, but again, not today. In a
got
later
it. Okay.
version.
Yeah, I think that's all we had from the audience, like in terms of questions, and from my side as well. But this session has been super interesting. We are, I think, so far in the series, we are the largest audience for this session. So thanks, Sandeep, for joining and explaining
My
about the
request to
migration
everybody
tool.
on the call is to go please try out. It's free to use. Just need to MongoDB vCore is free. You can create a free tier MongoDB vCore. You can so if you have a MongoDB, then please feel free to use this. Send the feedback either to Saji or to the alias that I put in the video. It's there in the first slide of the video that I presented. Yeah, your feedback is important for us to improve the product and make sure that you have seamless migrations in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Before I close, make sure to subscribe the channel and please feel free to share with the community members to share the feedback and also to join for the next sessions. We will meet again in a couple of weeks. We will be talking about Nest.js for Cosmos DB. This is mainly about a library that a cloud developer advocate has built on his own, and how you can interact with Cosmos DB using Nest.js. So we'll catch again in that episode. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.